Buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidos al tercer día del festival. Hoy va a ser un día muy importante. Entre otras cosas, sabremos quién es el ganador de esta edición del concurso MontPhoto, el 25 aniversario. ¿Tú qué crees, Marcos? ¿Sorprenderán las fotos ganadoras o qué?
Yo creo que sí, son muy merecidas y nuestro jurado este año ha hecho un trabajo espectacular.
Pues sí, ¿eh? Y no veas lo que nos costó. Pero bueno, también anunciaremos hoy el ganador o ganadora de nuestro concurso de vídeo y al ganador o ganadora de la beca MontPhoto 2021. Así que estad muy atentos porque será una gala un tanto diferente. Las películas presentadas las podéis ver en la web de MontPhoto, www.montphoto.com, donde aún están disponibles.
Echarles un ojo que hay para todos los gustos. Hoy va a ser un día especial porque anunciaremos todos los premios de este año. Pero antes de desvelar quiénes son los ganadores, vamos a dirigir la mirada al mar. En primer lugar, nos gustaría presentaros el trabajo de Isabel Díez, el libro Entre Mareas, que a través de 133 fotografías del litoral atlántico español, Isabel explora el misterio, la armonía y la belleza de paisajes íntimos que hacen que el mundo desde la orilla cobre otra dimensión. Isabel se caracteriza por ser una fotógrafa serena, pero inquieta a la vez, siempre intentando descubrir esos pequeños detalles que a muchos de nosotros simplemente se nos escapan. Lo podéis encontrar en nuestra sección de novedades editoriales, en la web de MontPhoto.
Gracias, Marcos. Un trabajo fantástico el de Isabel. La verdad es que es poesía pura. Y ahora nos quedamos con el mar, pero esta vez nos vamos un poquito más al sur. Nos vamos de paseo de la mano de Jennifer Hayes. Jennifer is a marine biologist who has explored the world beneath oil and gas rigs, documented remote and wild Cuba, and submerged into Greenland's fjords choked with icebergs. Today, she will take us to some of her favorite spots on the planet, and her stories won't leave us unmoved. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hello, good people. My name is Jennifer Hayes. I am a photographer at National Geographic Magazine. My partner above and below the water is David Duboulet. I think you heard from him last year. We are together 24/7. Oh my God. What is really cool in a relationship is a working relationship is that you don't always see things the same way. So it makes for a really dynamic partnership. He stops for every clownfish in the sea. We are on 1.5 million clownfish images in our red cabinets back there. He likes the tropics. I like the poles. So the difference is dynamic and fun. But what I'm going to do on for MontPhoto in this talk is take you to some of my favorite places to photograph and to share. And let me tell you a little bit about what goes out in my kit. I do a little bit of everything. I'm the scientist in the team. I'm a photographer. I'm a videographer. I do drones. I do iPhones. I do GoPros. I do hydrophones. So I kind of do everything. And then out come the DSLRs. But here we go. I'm going to take you to some of the places that I think have resonated with me. I'm not religious, but it turns out I am spiritual because when I get to these places, I sit, I listen, I stop photographing, and I take the time to let this place sink into what it's all about and to appreciate it and why we should do everything in our power to keep them. Now, I tell everybody when we speak for National Geographic Live in front of 2,000 or 3,000 people, they say, where should we go? Where is your favorite place on the planet? There isn't just one. There's many ones. There isn't just one place. It can be a pond chasing pollywogs. I'm in heaven chasing pollywogs. Or it can be the Pacific. It can be Raja Ampat in the Pacific. But I have a tendency to like cold water. And South Georgia, usually we stop in South Georgia on the way back from Antarctica or on the way. You do the Falklands, South Georgia, and the Antarctic Peninsula, or in reverse. Save up your money and go. And here's why. But I am going to tell you really quickly, If you plan to do the Arctic and you plan to do Antarctica, go to the Arctic first. Why? The animals are more skittish in the Arctic. Why? Because they are hunted there. There's resource extraction in the Arctic. So when they see you, they don't mob you. You have a tendency to see them at a distance. But you got to get to the Arctic because of the changing conditions there, and then go to the Antarctic. In South Georgia, St. Andrews Bay, one of the largest king penguin colonies. There's over 200,000 kings there. And it isn't just about kings. This is a Gentoo. How do we know it's a Gentoo? And I wish my name was Gentoo, but it's Jennifer, but I would like it to be Gentoo. So you see this, do you see this orangey beak? That is your signal that you are looking at a Gentoo, and look at its chick. So there's more than one species of penguin on South Georgia. And where you have these huge colonies, you also have predation. So meet the giant petrel. David calls them kind of a seagoing turkey. I think it's an insult. So I don't call them a seagoing turkey. I call them the giant petrel. They are curious. We were off a macaroni penguin colony, and this guy waddled off the beach, fell into the sea. They're not very glorious. Paddled out to us, started pecking the dome on the camera, and then he started pecking our neoprene-clad heads. So they're kind of clumsy, but they're necessary, because in these really big colonies, wherever you have things that are alive in mass, you also have death in mass. So they kind of are the cleanup crew. Now let's go into the world of the penguin, and I won't have to convince you that you should go to South Georgia. You'll end this presentation and buy your own ticket, I promise you. So take a look at the world, the secret world of the penguins. Certain times of the year, it's surrounded by ice, krill. If you're in the Antarctic or South Georgia, you eat krill, or you eat something that eats krill. These are kings coming home from a night at sea. There's the Gentoo again. They use the streams as boulevards to get further up to their nests. Okay, so that's why you have to go to South Georgia. Dawn, sunrise on St. Andrews is one of the most spiritual places on the planet. What does 200,000 pairs of king penguins look like in the morning at St. Andrews? It looks like this. It is incomparable, indescribable. It's not quiet. You can't hear your own thoughts just for the roar of the penguins. But it's just an incredible place on the planet. And David likes to say, I actually overheard a conversation. Have you ever seen a pulse of life like this on the planet? Someone was asking David, and he was next to me shooting. And he said, yes, I have. I have seen this pulse of life on the planet. And the girl turned around, she said, where? And he said, Moscow, New Year's Eve, Times Square, New Year's Eve. You know, he said, I've seen this pulse of life in humanity. Now, humanity has to turn this around and save this pulse of life, realize what it is, and do everything we can to protect it. But I thought it was just a great moment to hear this. Yes, I've seen this many creatures in one area before, Times Square. And it isn't just about penguins on South Georgia. It's also about pinnipeds. We have elephant seals, we have leopard seals, we have fur seals. And this is a good news story, finally a good news story. And I'd give anything to have an app on my iPhone to be able to determine what this king penguin is saying to the fur seal, and it's a juvenile saying it back to the king. But here's the thing. When I say it's a good news story, these furs were pushed to near extinction, hunted to almost near extinction, but brought back from the brink with protection. Now there's as many as there were pre-hunting. They're born in November. They're just incredible to photograph because they live in these hummocks of grass, and the parents will go out and they'll forage during the day at the sea, and then they'll come back and they'll nurse their pups. And as they get older and they enter the juvenile phase, they get really haughty and huffy and grouchy and grumpy, and they just make the greatest expressions. They also try to steal your gear. If you leave your backpack on the ground for any length of time and you come back and expect to find anything in it, you won't. So there's a public service warning for anyone going to South Georgia. Just zip up your backpack. And I'm going to take you into the world of the fur seal. And like I say, on every assignment, I take GoPros. I make them all work to tell the story. Take a look at these clowns. While the mothers and fathers are out at sea earning a living, the pups all come together, and it's like play school. It's like learn how to swim, learn how to be a fur seal time. And there's this place called Puppy River in South Georgia. It's just kind of a colloquial name given to this one place where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these pups swim together and just literally learn to socialize and how to be a fur seal. And it's to submerge into this, pulling straps, pulling fins, pulling hoods, biting camera cords, yanking on strobes. It's magic. All right, so good people. I'm going to take you to basically our neighborhood. I'm staring at this particular screen of the St. Lawrence. This is the St. Lawrence River in the Thousand Islands. This is Bolt Castle. If I look out of my left eye, I'm also pretty much seeing that same view. I live on the St. Lawrence, so I have 55 steps going down to the St. Lawrence right in front of me, headed down to this. And why am I taking you to the St. Lawrence? Why is it one of my most favorite places on the planet? Not just because I live here, because of this. I'm not going to say anything. Does anybody know what this is? It's a sturgeon. I'm obsessed with sturgeon. I would have married a sturgeon if I could. Some people say that when I married David Dubélé that I might have married a sturgeon. There are 27 species of sturgeon on the planet. Guess what, people? 27 species are in trouble. They are hanging on just by their fins. Why? Because of hydropower development, lack of habitat, and we ate them off the planet. These guys, sturgeon produce caviar, and in Europe you have the big ones. You have beluga, osetra, sevruga, and we've just literally consumed, in the caviar, we've consumed these fish right out of the river. They are one of the most valuable pound-for-pound fish on the planet, and we are lucky to have them as neighbors for 5 days out of the year. 5 whole days, sturgeon appear at an area 45 minutes downstream of our dock. How do I know this? Because I studied them as part of my doctorate program. I put tags on them. I got to know their names, where they go, who their friends are, and now I visit them every year. But let me take you into the world of the sturgeon, and I'm sorry, but I have to share this obsession. They're called the dinosaur fish because they were around when the dinosaurs were, and they survived. And I dive on the beds, and I can hear them spawning. That's how I locate them. This is a spawning group, a big female with many males feeling very sexy. I'm in 42 feet of water. The current is roaring. It's like inside of a fire hose. Look at these. They have a tubular mouth. You see lampreys. Watch her feed. Isn't that the coolest thing you've ever seen? And that's a big female, and the male's just waiting, waiting, waiting. And then she'll spawn, and it sounds like thunder down there, and eggs and sperm coming down river. We call it being spooged. We collect the eggs and sperm, and we fertilize them. It doesn't harm the fish. They go to a hatchery, and then they're released back into the river in October. They're collected in June. And there they go. Next generation sturgeon to help keep these guys swimming on the planet. It happens in June, literally just an hour from our dock. So again, stalk us with questions about sturgeon. And if anybody wants to know what 7,500 sturgeon look like on the bottom of the river in October, these are fingerlings. That's about 7,500 sturgeon. Now, here's a fact about sturgeon. Why is it so hard to keep them on the planet? Listen to this. They can live over 100 years. They don't spawn until they're at least 20 or 25 years old. Imagine being 25 years old before you had sex for the first time, and then they don't spawn every year. They spawn about every 5 years. So that's why it's hard, and we got to work really hard to keep these guys on the planet. So don't eat caviar. I'm asking you to make a pledge. Don't eat caviar. All right, my next favorite place on the planet is still in the St. Lawrence, but this is, instead of being an hour down from our dock, this is 1,000 miles down from my dock. This is the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and this is where you all get an invitation. And you think I'm being insincere? I'm not being insincere. I'm being very sincere. You can all go to the harp seal nursery. It is one of the most magical places on the planet. It happens in late February and early March. Harp seals come down from the Arctic. They migrate down past Greenland. They come into the Gulf. And the males and the females come, and they're going to be looking, it's their nursery, they're going to be looking for solid ice in late February. And this is what they call a whelping ground, or a nursery area. So this is a white coat. This creature is probably 4 or 5 days old. And here's what the herd looks like. Harp seals require ice to be born on. They're what they call ice obligates. They require ice. They're built for it. Their claws are designed to pull them across the ice. They cannot be born on shore, otherwise they'll perish, because simply the mothers will abandon them. Coyotes, wolves, and humans will do them in. And so the pups are born in late February. They're nursed for 12 to 15 days. Mom is going to come and go from the surface of the ice, and while she's gone, the white coat's going to look for protection from this hideous wind, non-stop, relentless wind that blows down from the north. And any piece of ice will do. It can be the size of a piece of bread, shoe box. This pyramid works great because he's got 360-degree protection. So mom's going to come and go for 12 to 15 days, and then she's going to abandon the pup. And that's not the only thing that's going to happen to this poor pup. He's going to begin to molt. Mom's gone. He's living on all this fat from the milk he's consumed, which he's going to need to actually rely on those resources. But then he's going to start to shed his beautiful white coat, and he's going to emerge in the next life history phase, and that's called the beater phase. He's starting to slim down. He's starting to swim better. He's starting to become and look like a harp seal. So on this particular National Geographic assignment, it was our last day. David finds his harp seal. You can see this one has started to shed, has started to molt. You can see some of the white, and you can see some of the gray there. He has his seal. I'm going to leave, and I'm going to swim off and find my own seal. I find my seal. Here he is. He's poking his head down into the water. I'm in the water on mask, fin, snorkel, dry suit, weight belt, camera. I see him. He sees me. He says, "You're not my mama. Where's my mama?" And I'm going to do a little bit of storytelling here. And it's about imagery and using them to tell stories. And "You're not my mom. Where's mom?" Mom is behind me. There she is. She's not happy. So she zips around the side of me. There she goes. Look at how magnificent she is. She comes around the side of me. She goes up to her pup and she meets this pup. She coaxes the pup in to the water. She's going to move him away from the crazy lady with the camera. They meet with this nose-to-nose kiss of recognition. It's like, "Mwah! Are you my mom? Are you my pup?" It's a scent, it's sound, it's sight, it's smell. It's all of these senses. "Yes, I'm your pup." And she begins to move the pup away from me. Come on, we're going to get away from this crazy lady with the camera. So she's leading him away to another piece of ice. And as we're swimming along, the pup is really curious. He's looking over at me. He's looking over at me. Who is she? What is she? I've never seen anything like that. Never mind, I'm only like 5 days old, but this is weird. And as he's trying to come to me, he's trying to swim, but you can see mom, look at where her flipper is on this image. She is physically holding the pup back from coming to see me. He's like, "I would like to see what that is over there." And she's like, "No, no, no." And we're swimming along and I'm keeping a polite distance. Literally, let wildlife approach you. Don't crowd wildlife. So we're swimming along and I'm keeping that distance and she's getting used to me and getting used to me. She starts to drop back and the pup gets a little more freedom and a little more freedom and a little more. And pretty soon he's pretty close to me and she's eyeing me. She's eyeing the pup, but I've been in the water half an hour, 40 minutes with him so far, just gently going along. And then he gets really close. Here he is. He's here. He's arrived. He gets on my shoulder. He gets perches with his little tiny, tiny claws, and he gets up on my and then he gets on my chest. And then he's on my chest, literally 100% harp seal pup on my chest, resting like I'm a piece of ice. And he starts to do that nose-to-nose thing to my mask. "Are you my mom?" Meanwhile, the mother harp seal is doing 360 degrees around me, giving me stink eye, like, "What are you doing? Why is my pup on you? I don't trust or like this situation." And then the pup rolls off. And the mom comes up to the pup and she checks him everywhere, stem to stern, nose to flipper. "Are you all right? Did she do anything bad to you? Did anything happen? What was all that about? Why did you do that?" And I'm photographing this like a maniac. I'm like, "Oh my God, it's the best last day ever." And then I feel a nip on my left ankle. And then I feel a nip on my right ankle. And I'm like, "What the hell was that?" And I look down and I see about 20, maybe 25 male harp seals 15 or 20 feet below me in a slow carousel. And I was like, wow, that might not be good. And then a male came right up over my back. His penis got caught in my mask strap, took that off. They fell down. It fell down in the water. I duck dived to get it and just got the mask, and I was cramming it back on my face with the mucus and the seawater, and I've got the female and the pup next to me, and I get the mask on and I look down and there's the male below me doing this, like just looking. And I said, that might not be good. And then the next thing was like a blur, literally a blur. There's the blur. It was her. She flew past me, swam down, leaving the pup like at an arm's length from me. She swam down to the male and she beat the crap out of him. There was a tumble and a roll and flippers and fins and mucus and bubbles and just this constant mayhem. And he swam off. And then she came up nice and slow. She came up blowing these big, giant basketball-sized bubbles. And I thought, this might not be good. And then she goes back over to her pup. and she checks him out stem to stern. Literally, are you okay? She sniffed him, she felt of him, she hugged him, she embraced him, and started pushing, using her head, her body, her flippers, pushing the pup towards the edge of the ice, out of this open water towards the edge of the ice. And it was incredible. I watched them going away and said, oh my God, it was the best last day ever. But she stopped. And then she turned around and she came back to where I was, and she began nudging me with her head, her flippers, and her body until she had me literally right next to the pup. So we were just literally side by side, and she began nudging us both through the water towards the edge of the ice. And I said to myself, this is impossible. This isn't happening. I'm a skeptic. This doesn't happen. Dolphins save people. No, they don't save people. I'm a skeptic. But this female, this mother, was literally pushing us both towards the edge of the ice, and she had a goal. I could see where she was going. And she was taking her pup, and I was collateral. I was a collateral guest. She was going to take us to this opening, this lead between the ice, and take the pup down there. But we couldn't go there because the ice comes together. So I ducked around her. I watched them disappear. I was cold. I had to urinate so bad I didn't know my name. I was putting my camera up on the edge of the ice, about ready to undo my weight belt, when a male comes underneath that ice and he bites me in the groin. Bang! Literally right square in the groin. Bang! And he let go. And then he bites me square in the thigh. Bang! And he let go. And before I knew it, even with my 16, 18-pound weight belt on, I was standing up on the ice, never in the history of Jennifer having been able to do that before, standing up thinking, what just happened? And oh yeah, I can't put weight on my right leg. So I'm gonna say this, when I just not close with this, but it could have been much worse. Let me tell you why. It sounds dramatic, but he could have pulled me down 400 feet on a snorkel. That wouldn't have been a good day. He could have pulled me back under the ice, and I'm in a dry suit on a snorkel, and I would have been a cork stuck under the ice, and that wouldn't have been a good day. So all in all, it was a good day. Yes, I have scars, and yes, I will be identifiable in the case of an auto accident. But the point is, we know why he did it. We know the female. I was in the vicinity of a potential mate. He was being territorial. My question is more to the point of, why did the female do what she did? We know why the male was aggressive. That was boyfriend-girlfriend stuff. That's 7th grade stuff. We get that. But why did the female do this? Now, fast forward, I've been going to the harp seals for a decade, since 2011. Every year the ice allows, I go. Why? Because they are the face of climate change, because the harp seal nursery is shrinking or not forming at all, and the pups are losing their platforms before they're able to survive. And MontPhoto, I'm going to share you something from 2020. It was our last trip before COVID. No one's seen this except for you guys now, and I'm gonna show you the face of climate change in 2020. Our last assignment, the Canadian border closed on us. So here's something special. This is what it looked like in 2020 with the ice melting. That's a female. Literally, you can see the dot. You see a little small black dot next to her. That's her pup. It looks pleasant, but this ice is unstable, and that pup is dead. He's been smashed to bits. This was an early onset spring and poor ice. Here's 2020. Harp-seal whitecoats are an engaging, beautiful animal now facing the ugly truths of climate change. Pups require stable ice to survive and mature on. As temperatures rise, the ice nursery shrinks. Sometimes it collapses, sometimes it doesn't form at all. Can you picture thousands of pregnant seals with no place to give birth? In 2020, limited sea ice formed in the Gulf, but a big storm came through and broke it up. Winds pushed the pieces back into a loose patchwork of ice cover. The harp seal herd, desperate for a birthing platform, hauled out on this fractured world and began giving birth February 29th. Temperatures kept rising and their world kept shrinking. The nursery was disappearing beneath them. This newborn pup, only minutes old, was born on slush, not on sea ice. I returned to find open water and no pup. We saw an exhausted pup drowning in heavy slush, and I made the hard decision to get in and document death in a disintegrating world of ice. The pup sensed I was stable and climbed on to rest. I had to make a decision: push the pup off and let it drown, or let it stay and swim it out to open water. I began to swim. This is what a disintegrating ice nursery looks like 9 days after the herd gave birth. Pups need a few weeks of good ice. Imagine this ice in a storm. Because of COVID, the scientists left the field, but estimate survivorship was somewhere between not good and catastrophic. I wondered then, and I wonder now, did this struggling pup survive? So, good people, look forward to your questions, and that truly is a sincere invite to the St. Lawrence for a hot dog and potato salad, or if you're vegetarian, just salad. And I look forward to seeing you in the Harp Seal Nursery, and I look forward to your questions, and I thank MontPhoto for inviting me, and I cannot wait to see everyone in person. So, see you soon.
Hello, Jenny. Welcome to MontPhoto 21. We're getting to the theater. And oh, there's even some people here.
Yay!
How are you?
Yeah.
Wait.
Thank you.
Up there?
Oh, there you are. There it is.
Okay,
There's
let's
a screen.
start this. Welcome, Jenny. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for inviting me into the theater. And thank you for listening to a very chatty Jennifer Hayes. Thank you.
Diré que muchísimas gracias por estar aquí en el teatro con nosotros y sobre todo muchísimas gracias por escuchar tanto rato a su charla, que según dice ella, charla demasiado, pero a mí, Marcos, no sé qué te parece a ti, me sigue fascinando.
A mí me encanta escucharla y la intensidad y la emoción que le pone a su narración, la verdad que es espectacular.
Jenny, I would like to start with one question that I've been wondering for a while now. So we've been watching many of your talks. We had the pleasure to have you here today at MontPhoto, and you're always with a big smile in your face. You talk about many complicated topics. You talk about very complicated stories, but still, you have always this positivity with you. What's the secret?
There's no secret at all. I think humor is priceless. It gets us through everything. Some days things go perfectly smoothly, and some days go straight to hell. And I think that if you can pull yourself through a situation with humor, and it just doesn't destroy you. you have to take the good with the bad. And I have learned a thing, and that is that when things aren't going right, soon enough they will. So have a good laugh if you can, and move through. Keep going.
That's a cool advice to begin
Yeah.
with.
Bueno, John ha preguntado eso, que bueno, siempre viendo esa actitud tan positiva que tiene, ¿cómo lo hace para tener ese ánimo, siempre ese buen humor, ¿no? Y lo que dice Jenny, que realmente el ser positivo no tiene precio, que hay que ser positivo, que el hecho de ser positivo no te va a destruir ninguna situación, ¿no? Pero no te lo va a empeorar. Es decir, siempre hay que ir positivo y siempre pensando en que las cosas irán a mejor.
Sí, porque por muy negativo o triste que te pongas, no habrá manera de que cambien las cosas al final.
Si la cosa va mal, si tú estás mal, irá peor.
Jenny, you've been traveling all over the world. You and David have visited many spectacular places, but at the same time, we saw in your presentation that one of your dearest places is in front of your backyard with the sturgeons. How important is to focus your energies, your skills, and everything just in front of your place, at your doorstep?
David said something funny yesterday in our kitchen. 2 days ago, 3 days ago, I was on the bottom of the St. Lawrence, which is right there, right out my window, an hour away, with 7,000 baby sturgeon. The federal government released 7,000 baby sturgeon that were collected as eggs in June. We are restoring a sturgeon population. And David said, you know, I met you in 1995, you started with sturgeon. This is a life's work for you. He's right. Over an egg, he said, it's a life's work for you. I am obsessed with sturgeon, and I make no apologies, but we are bringing them back, and it's just every year to see them. It's amazing. They're embedded in who I am, I think.
Nice. Jenny nos comenta que el 95 empezó a trabajar con los esturiones, que hace 3 días justamente estaba trabajando con ellos y estaba rodeada de 7.000 alevines de esturión, y que para ella es una pasión, es su devoción seguir. Le he comentado que visitan todo el mundo, pero qué importancia tiene centrarse en las cosas que están delante de casa, ¿no? Y para ella dice que es vital, que es lo que le apasiona y lo que seguirá luchando cada día, y así seguirá, y le deseamos mucha suerte con ello.
Jenny, just curious. I mean, do you argue with David underwater?
That's a good question.
No. Yes. Yeah, a lot of hand signals, like yeah, and what are you doing? We use ride-on boards and underwater slates, and we have to erase them when we surface because there are some very tense conversations on those noteboards. Yeah. We do. Yes, we do.
Yo le preguntaba a Jenny que si alguna vez discutían debajo del agua, y dice que bueno, que no nos discuten, pero que se hacen muchas señales debajo del agua, en el ok, todo bien, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué estás haciendo? ¿No? Y que llevan una tablilla donde van escribiendo y donde se van contando cosas, ¿no? Pero afortunadamente no discuten mucho en el agua.
Jenny, I have another question, and is you are a scientist yourself, and you work a lot with young people, with the students. You work at the university, you teach there. How vital is science and this work for your photography, and also for the conservation projects you work on?
I have 2 people say, how do we solve the problems that we've created? So I've created problems, our generations created problems, the previous generations have created problems. I think there are two answers to those problems going forward. I can't probably be a problem solver because I won't be on the planet long enough, but I think the solutions are hashtag collaboration and hashtag next generation. Next generation is only absolutely everything. It's everything. They have seen our mistakes. They have inherited our mistakes, watched our mistakes, and hopefully they stand on our shoulders, they reach higher, and they find better pathways forward and are able to fix some of the things, the problems that we've created. So I say a funny thing, or I hear a funny thing is in every meeting I sit down in, whether it's National Geographic or anywhere, in these meetings, next generation, next generation, next generation. The words, it's like a buzzword. But in that meeting, there are no next generation and there's no voice. So my hope is to put them there, put the next generation out there, give them a voice, drag them with us, and get them where they want to go. I tell people to stalk us all the time. And people, oh, well, you're too busy. No, we want to be stalked. We want to help. We want to help the next generation get where they need to be. It's critical. It's critical for us to do that.
That's inspiring. Thank you, Jenny. I'm going to try to translate and summarize that a bit. Jenny no,
A lot of words.
Le he comentado que ella es científica, ella colabora mucho con estudiantes, trabaja en la universidad y le he preguntado sobre el valor de la importancia de la ciencia para su trabajo y para los proyectos de conservación en general. Y más allá de la importancia de la ciencia, ha ido directamente a dos tópicos que también tienen relación con ella. El primero es la colaboración, o sea, unir diferentes personas de diferentes ámbitos, colaborar con todo quien pueda, que pueda aportar algo a la causa final, ¿no? Y la más importante para ella es la siguiente generación, las nuevas generaciones que realmente son las que, por un motivo u otro, al final, desafortunadamente, tendrán que cargarse con todo el trabajo, intentar solucionar. Y lo que le hace precisamente gracia es que en muchos de los mítines donde hoy en día pasa tiempo, se habla continuamente de esta nueva generación, pero esta generación no está presente en esos mítines. Y por eso su objetivo de ella y de David es intentar dar plataformas, dar empujones a estos jóvenes y chicos y chicas que quieren llegar a un lugar u otro, ya sea ciencia, arte, fotografía, lo que sea. Y eso es su objetivo en lo que le quedan de fuerzas.
Jenny, we've got another question. We've got a couple of questions from Felix. He says that's amazing, your presentation, your stories, your photographs. So congratulations. And he's asking you, I mean, when you're diving under the ice, I mean, working in such a harsh conditions, I mean, and you're with those seals, I mean, do you forget about, I mean, what's the difficult conditions you're working on?
Yeah, you can forget. If something is happening, adrenaline takes over, and you are so excited to see or be a part of something so special, so rare, and something that now in our head or my head, I know might be disappearing. Those seals might have to leave the Gulf for lack of ice. Any moment I get with them it's just priceless. It's precious. It's incredible. And I've learned to realize that. So I do forget everything else. And when all the action stops, I'm really cold. I have to urinate. I don't know my name. But while it's happening, I embrace it. And it's part of me. I try to absorb it all. And then when it ends, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so cold. Oh my God, I have to go to the bath. Oh my God. And yes, then reality comes back.
Sí, voy a traducirlo, ¿no? También la pregunta, ¿no? Que le había preguntado, a través de Félix Gil de la Casa, una pregunta, ¿no? que la que decía que cuando está entre el hielo y en el agua helada trabajando cerca de las focas, que si se le olvidan estas condiciones tan duras y exigentes, ¿no? Por la maravilla de los animales que
Ha sido
interactúan
directa,
con ella. Y ha dicho que sí, que efectivamente se olvida de todo. De
de
todo.
todo.
Cuando está la acción, no quiere perderse nada. Ahora, eso sí, cuando ha pasado todo,
Tiene que ir
vuelve,
al baño,
claro,
viene el
vuelve a la
frío y
realidad y
bueno.
se da cuenta de que está muerta de frío, está helada, tiene que ir al cuarto baño, no se acuerda de su nombre, pero sí. Significa que cuando está rodeada o está presenciando un acontecimiento tan espectacular, se olvida de todo, ¿no? Aparte que dice que es un momento imborrable, ¿no?
Let's say something, Jenny. So we have some people here in the audience, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to do that, but maybe there's someone here who wants to ask a question to Jenny. ¿Alguien le gustaría preguntar algo directamente a Jenny? ¿Alguien se anima? If not, we have many questions. ¿Alguien? Isa. Oh, okay. Isa, up there, is asking us, is asking you, Jenny, so how were you rescued? So after the accident with the seal, with the male seal, when you jumped out of the water without knowing, how were you rescued in that moment? What happened after that?
Well, a very angry boat captain saw me on the ice, and he had been looking for me for 45 minutes to an hour because I had followed the seal and disappeared from their view. And they were very worried about me. And when I got up on the ice, I heard the engine start, and that boat came right over to my ice floe, and he dropped the gangplank, not gently, but with a bang, and get on the boat. So that's how I was rescued.
Comenta Jenny que, bueno, que fue una situación muy, muy curiosa, porque, bueno, cuando se montó en subió a la plataforma de hielo, quien le esperaba era un capitán muy cabreado, un capitán de embarcación muy cabreado, porque por lo visto se había tirado como 40, 45, 50 minutos buscándola, y cuando la encontró, llegó, como aquel que dice, derrapando con la lancha. Ella notó el rugir del motor y apareció la lancha y tiró la escalera y dijo, venga, súbete ya para arriba, un poco como bastante cabreado, ¿no?
Sí, muy cabreado, comentado, sí, sí. Jenny, we have another question here in the chat, and it's, hello Jenny, Jordi says, we just saw your favorite places on the planet, but what was your all-time best experience underwater?
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Uh-oh. Oh my gosh. There are many. I think some are obvious. The sturgeons. When I'm face to face with maybe 100-year-old fish, and I've seen her before, I'm down there alone with her, or she's with several other sturgeon, I have conversations with those sturgeon. Hey, how are you? How have you been for the last 5 years? You know, do you know how you're one in a million? So they're embedded in, that's unfair for me to say that because they're a part of who I am now. But I find magic underwater in a pond or the Pacific. I find magic everywhere. Streams, beavers. I had a great moment with a beaver the other day. I loved it. But let me tell you this. There are places on this planet I dream about going that might be the best places might be the place I haven't been, or the next place, and I'm hoping one day to get to Sable Island. So possibly.
Solomon Island. She said Solomon Island.
Yeah.
Bueno, Jordi había preguntado que cuál era su sitio favorito en el planeta, ¿no? Y cuál ha sido su mejor experiencia debajo del agua. Y bueno, dice
y le ha costado con
claro,
tantas que ha
claro,
vivido.
es muy difícil, ¿no? Pero sobre todo será por el cariño que le tiene a los esturiones, es probablemente para ella, ¿no?, de las mejores sensaciones, ¿no?, estar con viejos esturiones.
Un animal de hasta 100 años que ve continuamente, que ve año tras año, pues dice que incluso tiene conversaciones, ¿no? Que es como encontrar viejos amigos, que es como, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo han ido estos últimos años? Y que es muy emocionante. Pero también nos cuenta que realmente bajo el agua ella siente magia, que ya sea en una charca, ya
Cualquier
sea en el
sitio donde
océano.
vaya, cualquier sitio donde vaya, ella encuentra magia, es decir, e incluso probablemente su sitio más espectacular será el próximo sitio donde nunca ha estado, ¿no? Y espera ir.
Y esperamos que sea aquí en la Costa Brava. So, Jenny, I hope your next place maybe is in the Costa Brava here where we are now. So, fingers crossed.
Please, we would love to visit. We would, yes, we would explode with excitement to visit. We love, the idea. So please, let us come and stalk you and be there and enjoy. And
Okay. Paco, can you book the flight tickets for next year? Jen, we have another question here, and Albert says, "Hi Jen, we've seen some of your adventures, but have you ever been afraid underwater? Have you ever had a fear underwater?"
Yeah, I am most afraid of myself and bad decisions. I am less afraid of marine creatures. We have a policy, or I have a strict policy, let them approach you. It doesn't always go the best, but I think the most dangerous thing in the ocean might be my gradient. One more picture. I'm low on air. I want to stay. And then I discover I've drifted or I'm deep. And now I've created a tense situation because now I've got to get back to the surface. I've been caught in fishing nets and dragged along the bottom and said, this might not end well. And those situations, your heart gets really big and it ends up in your throat and then your head and you panic and then you just have to push it all back down and say, all right, I have to make good decisions. I can't panic. And so yes, I have had my heart bump, but you have to push it back. But I think the biggest enemy under the sea is me, my own judgment.
Albert preguntaba eso, que si había tenido alguna vez miedo, realmente miedo, mientras buceaba, ¿no?, mientras estaba en el agua, y dice que curiosamente a quien más le tiene miedo no son a las criaturas subacuáticas ni marinas, ¿no?, sino a ella misma, ¿no? El hecho de decir, venga, otra foto más, te das cuenta que te estás quedando sin aire, o a lo mejor acabas derivada por la marea, o te vas a quedar sin aire, ¿no? Entonces, sobre todo es eso, el peligro que ella misma se pueda crear a sí misma. Comentaba que incluso ya se ha quedado enganchada en redes a la deriva, donde la han arrastrado durante muchos metros, y en esa situación pensó de que eso no iba a acabar bien.
Jenny, we are running out of time, unfortunately, but not before asking you one final question. And it is, if people in this room could take only one thought with them away, so at home, from your presentation, from your talk and so on, what would that thought be? Would you like to be?
All right, John, I have two thoughts. Number one, It turns out we all make a difference. I didn't think the little things make a difference. The little things make a really big difference if we all do the little things. Number one. Number two, I invite everyone watching in the audience and online, come to the Harp Seals in late February or early March. Join us in the ice. It's very easy to do. You don't have to be a National Geographic, BBC, or Discovery photographer. I will see you there.
That's a great way to end. I don't know if you understood that, but I'm going to translate it anyway. Tenía que hablar en castellano ahora. Bueno, le hemos preguntado qué cosa le gustaría a ella, desearía a ella que el público, la audiencia, se lleve a casa, ¿no? Después de esta charla, y dice que no puede decir una cosa, sino que son dos. La primera es que todo el mundo puede marcar la diferencia. Por muy pequeña que sea, esa diferencia cuenta. Y todas esas diferencias pequeñas juntas son los que al final van a traer el cambio. Y la segunda, que lo dice muy convencida, lo ha dicho sobre la charla ya, que por favor, que al final de febrero o principios de marzo, que la acompañéis a ella y a David a visitar la focarpía en el norte de Canadá, en el lago Golfo de San Lorenzo. Así que no dudéis en contactarla y aprovechar, que dice que no hace falta ser National Geographic para
poder
ir allí.
disfrutar, que ya estará esperando.
Exacto. Así que, Jenny, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much. Say hi to David from all of us, and we see you next year here in Lloret de Mar.
Okay, everyone, be well. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jenny. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Este tipo de ponencias y conversaciones son las que te hacen pensar. Por una parte te hacen reír porque Jenny la verdad que es única, pero también te hacen plantearte lo que entre todos le estamos haciendo al planeta y a todo lo que nos rodea. De este tipo de material vamos a ver también en la gala, que empieza ya.
Muy buenas tardes, señoras y señores, y bienvenidos a la gala de entrega de premios de la 25ª edición de MontPhoto. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the MontPhoto 2021 Awards Ceremony. Benvinguts a una edició molt especial, al nostre 25è aniversari. Sin duda, este va a ser un día de fiesta y celebración muy especial desde aquí, los jardines de Santa Clotilde, no solo porque cumplimos 25 años, sino por la enorme cantidad de novedades que os traemos y la calidad de todos los trabajos que vamos a mostrar. Un año más, no podemos olvidar que todo cuando estamos celebrando viene condicionado por la pandemia del COVID-19. Mantenemos la responsabilidad global de hacer que la cultura sea segura, y por eso volvemos a utilizar un formato adaptado a las circunstancias. Así pues, MontPhoto vuelve a celebrarse un año más de esta manera virtual y parcialmente presencial. Como hemos comentado antes, esta 25ª edición del concurso ha batido récord de novedades. A los habituales premios de fotografía, este año sumamos los premios portfolios, vídeos y recuperamos la beca en un nuevo formato bienal. Esta noche conoceremos a los ganadores de las categorías del concurso fotográfico, conoceremos también los mejores portfolios presentados y así como los films premiados en la primera edición del concurso de Multimedia Storytelling, en las categorías de montaña y naturaleza. Por último, conoceremos la identidad y el proyecto de la beca 2021-2022, así como el ganador del premio MontPhoto 2021. Antes de seguir, nos gustaría destacar la firmeza y la tenacidad y el tesón de los miembros del jurado para seleccionar a todos los premiados. No ha sido un proceso fácil. Aprovechamos este momento para felicitarlos públicamente y dar las gracias a los 5 miembros del jurado de MontPhoto 2021. Ellos son Joan MacArthur, de Canadá, Florian Müller, de Alemania, Greg Lecoeur, de Francia, Antonio Pizarro, de España, y Catherine Eigner, de Estados Unidos. Pero este año también hemos contado con un jurado de lujo para nuestro formato multimedia, formado por Morgan Haim, de Estados Unidos, y Dani Salas, David Airop, Javier Zurita y Ofelia de Pablo, de España. Thank you for all great work and for helping us out in these difficult conditions. We are really, really grateful. Este año mantenemos además y de modo especial la categoría Naturaleza desde casa, al seguir afectados por la pandemia del COVID-19. Y queremos hacer un último inciso antes de dar comienzo a la gala de MontPhoto 2021. Como hemos venido explicando durante el FEST, MontPhoto ha decidido incrementar su compromiso con el medio ambiente y la conservación del mismo, colaborando con una ONG que hemos escogido desde la organización del festival con el objetivo de dar apoyo a diferentes iniciativas por la conservación del medio cada año a partir de este. Todo cuanto recaudemos con las entradas presenciales y la reproducción del FEST en diferido se destinará íntegramente a ella. Este año hemos escogido una ONG muy especial y lo que hacen y para lo que necesitan apoyo os lo va a explicar Amy Vitale, nuestra embajadora en Kenia.
Hi everybody, my name is Amy Vitale and I am so happy and honored to be here to share a story which is incredibly close to my heart. I know many of you already know about this story of the last northern white rhinos alive on the planet. Their names are Najin and Fatu, and they are lovingly taken care of and protected around the clock by the keepers at Ol Pejeta Conservancy in northern Kenya. But what some people may not know is this story that I began 12 years ago documenting the extinction of an ancient species has this dramatic and kind of audacious, amazing plan to rescue this species from extinction. And what I thought was an impossible dream actually is nearing the incredible reality that they may be able to save this species from extinction. And it just takes extraordinary vision and skills and really determination to provide them with a safe future. But that is exactly what they're doing at Ol Pejeta, and this team that is working hand in hand with the Biorescue Consortium, who have developed these technologies for assisted reproduction that might make this miracle come true. So I am really honored and pleased to hear that MontPhoto is supporting this mission, and I hope that you want to join that too, because we can actually go down as the generation that destroyed this planet, or we can go down in history as those that actually got behind taking us on a different path. So I hope all of you enjoy this, the festival, but also get engaged, make your voices heard, support them, and it's super easy. All you have to do is click on that button that says donate, and it's on the MontPhoto website. It'll take you to Ol Pejeta's website. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and all of you keep on telling these important stories. You're all amazing, and thank you. Bye-bye.
Muchísimas gracias, Amy. Si queréis contribuir a este proyecto y ayudar con el mantenimiento de Najin y Fatu y contribuir a su protección, no dudéis en hacer una pequeña donación a través de los banners de la página web o del link montphoto.com/donativo. Bien, no queremos empezar la gala tampoco sin dedicaros unos segundos a vosotros, la gran familia de MontPhoto. Muchísimas gracias a todos por estar con nosotros, una vez más al otro lado de la pantalla. Amigos incondicionales y participantes de esta edición, gracias por hacernos disfrutar y gracias por vuestro apoyo. Sed muy bienvenidos y que empiece la gala. Bien, como hemos comentado, este año viene cargado de novedades. Una de ellas ha sido el nuevo concurso de vídeo documental con el nombre de MontPhoto Multimedia Storytelling. A través de este concurso hemos querido ofrecer un espacio divulgativo a pequeños trabajos de menos de 15 minutos en dos de nuestras temáticas habituales, montaña y naturaleza. Ya hemos podido disfrutar en el Teatro de Lloret de la proyección de la selección oficial de los vídeos recibidos en esta primera edición. Podéis ver más información y visionarlos durante el festival en la página de MontPhoto desde vuestro acceso de usuario registrado. Vamos ahora a conocer a los finalistas y premiados, empezando con la categoría de vídeo de montaña. El objetivo de estos trabajos presentados a esta categoría es relatar proyectos deportivos, científicos o lúdicos sobre el entorno de la montaña, el esfuerzo de superación o los retos que nos vinculan a ella. Y el premio de esta primera edición para la categoría de montaña es para Aterpean Ateri de Rubén Crespo de España.
Azken orduko berria, Ministeritza Kontseilua bildu ostean Espainiako gobernuak osasun larrialdi honi aurre egiteko asmoz alarma egoera ezarri du estatu osoan. Espainiako presidenteak herrialdea konfinatzeko beharra dagoela azaldu du.
Hola MontPhoto, soy Rubén Crespo, director de Aterpean Ateri. Este cortometraje comenzó siendo algo completamente diferente. Estábamos preparando una expedición a Islandia para grabar un documental de kayak extremo y bueno, pues de repente vino el COVID y bueno, pues la expedición y el proyecto se fueron al garete, como me imagino un montón de proyectos y de expediciones. Teníamos ya bastante grabado de expediciones anteriores, estábamos con muchas ganas de sacar algo adelante, así que decidimos reescribir el guión sobre la nueva situación. Y la verdad que estamos muy contentos. El proceso de grabación hubo momentos muy graciosos, hubo momentos muy surrealistas. Al final Mikel, el protagonista, es uno de los mejores kayakistas extremos del mundo. Es una persona que tiene muchos documentales, está muy acostumbrado a estar delante de las cámaras, pero no está acostumbrado a estar delante de las cámaras, en su casa, solo, en un confinamiento. Es una persona además muy activa, así que os podéis imaginar cómo llevó el tema del confinamiento. Estuvimos varios días grabando en silencio para generar esas situaciones y esos momentos lo más fieles posibles a la realidad y a cómo vivió él el confinamiento. Así que bueno, se dieron situaciones la verdad que muy graciosas. Nada más, quería agradecer a MontPhoto por este premio, estoy muy contento y sobre todo quería dedicárselo a todas las personas que me han ayudado y que han estado detrás de este proyecto, que aunque sea cortito, hay mucha gente, hay mucho tiempo invertido detrás, así que nada, se lo dedico a todas esas personas. Muchísimas gracias por este premio, un abrazo enorme y un saludo desde el País Vasco. Agur.
Muchísimas gracias, Rubén, y a vosotros os recuerdo que no os lo perdáis, que encontraréis acceso a los vídeos en la página del festival siempre con vuestro usuario registrado. Y ahora llega el turno de vídeos de naturaleza. El poder de la narración visual, con la intención de desencadenar una acción positiva y restauradora a través de historias auténticas, conmovedoras y originales, porque la naturaleza depende de ello. Hemos recibido muchísimos trabajos y el jurado ha tenido que debatir muchísimo para nombrar a un ganador. Y el premio de esta primera edición para la categoría de naturaleza es para Nigerians Fight to Protect the World's Most Trafficked Mammals, de Kathy Schuller, de Estados Unidos.
It may surprise you that the most illegally trafficked mammal in the world is not the elephant or the rhinoceros. It is a small, gentle, scaled mammal called a pangolin. Very few people have heard of pangolins, and fewer still have seen them in the wild.
Hey everybody, thank you. Thank you for putting on this incredible festival and for recognizing my film with this award. I was completely wowed by the nominees, and it's a surprise and an honor to have won in such a competitive year. Our story takes place in Lagos, Nigeria, one of the largest exportation hubs of illegally trafficked mammals known as the pangolin. And it's actually one of the most illegally trafficked mammals in the world. And what's interesting about the pangolin and coming to Nigeria to film this piece is that we arrived planning to film the illegal trafficking route of the animal, and instead we found a very different story. One featuring, the incredible bravery and efforts of a local veterinarian named Marco Fua, who is now, since we made this film, he's opened up the very first pangolin rehab center in Nigeria. And so I'd like to dedicate this film to him. So thank you to everybody, and thank you, Mark, for the incredible work you do for pangolins all around the world.
Wow, menudo trabajo, Katy. No solo has ganado con el film de los pangolines, sino que además tu film de los caribús también es fantástico. Muchísimas felicidades y os recordamos que no os los perdáis. Bien, continuamos con los premios de fotografía y empezamos con la categoría de montaña. Como ya sabéis, el origen de MontPhoto es la montaña, y siempre decimos que las actividades que se realizan en ella representan nuestra esencia. Esta categoría siempre nos sorprende con imágenes nuevas, cada vez más frescas, originales, variadas, y hoy vamos a ver una pequeña selección antes de saber cuál ha sido la fotografía premiada. Menuda selección, ¿verdad? Sabemos que el jurado lo pasó mal para decidirse y no me extraña. Vamos a anunciar el segundo premio, que este año es para Eclosión de Javier Urbón de España. Y ahora sí, el primer premio de la categoría es para El monstruo del kayak, de Manuel Ismael Gómez de España.
Muy buenas, familia de MontPhoto. Ha sido una enorme sorpresa y una grandísima ilusión este reconocimiento. Así que, en primer lugar, como no, agradecerle al jurado haber elegido mi foto y agradecer a la organización de MontPhoto. Me habría encantado estar en ese magnífico festival que se celebra en Lloret de Mar. Y bueno, la historia de la foto se hizo en un viaje a Islandia que hice con unos amigos, con Fran Rubia, con Alfonso Moreno y con Álvaro Escobar. Y se hizo con dron en uno de los miles de lagos glaciares que hay en el sur de Islandia de nombre impronunciable. Y nada, estábamos haciendo fotos, fijándonos sobre todo en las figuras que hacían esos hielos sobre el agua, fijándonos si había pareidolia y demás. Y de pronto, pues, sabíamos que estaban por allí unos excursionistas y entraron en el encuadre de la foto. Tuve poco tiempo para buscar la composición que yo quería, pero al final, en los últimos segundos lo conseguí. Cuando vi la foto en el móvil dije, ya la tengo. Y nada, felicitar al resto de los premiados y dedicar la foto, como no, a mis amigos, y por supuesto a mi familia y a mi fan número uno, que son mi hija Elena y mi hija Valeria. Muchas gracias por todo.
Enhorabuena, Manuel. Bien, hay aproximadamente 5.500 especies diferentes de mamíferos en todo el mundo y son seres de lo más diverso, desde la enorme ballena azul hasta el murciélago. Habitan en la gran mayoría de ecosistemas del planeta, excepto algunas tierras heladas de la Antártida, gracias a la capacidad de adaptación que han demostrado a lo largo de toda su historia evolutiva. Abarcan una gran diversidad de nichos y funciones ecológicas e intervienen en una gran cantidad de procesos ecológicos dentro de los ecosistemas que habitan. El segundo premio es para Emancipación de Sergio Marijuán Campuzano de España. Y ahora el ganador de la categoría. El primer premio es para Ghost de Will Burrett Lucas de Reino Unido.
Hi guys, Will Burrett Lucas here, speaking to you from Tanzania. Well, what an honor to be here today to receive this award virtually, of course. Yeah, I'm really thrilled. I first got involved with MontPhoto a couple of years ago as a speaker, and I was incredibly impressed by the dedication of the team and just by how inspiring the entire event was, and of course the competition was. So this year I entered, and of course I'm thrilled that my entry has been successful. So I'd really like to thank everyone involved in organising the competition, the judges, and just say a big thank you really. I really am very proud to have achieved this award. And this is a photo that I'd actually set up with a slightly different shot in mind. I had this set up for a nighttime star-filled sky photo, but I'd really planned on the moon being below the horizon. So this was set up as a long exposure with a flash at the beginning, which then freezes the animal. And then because there shouldn't have been any moon, that would have meant that the sky didn't brighten behind the animal. So I would have had a sort of sharp picture of the leopard and then stars in the sky. But because the moon was above the horizon, during that long exposure, the moon exposed the sky, and what that meant is that you get this sort of ghostly, translucent animal. And I had quite a few shots like this where the conditions weren't quite right, but for some reason when I looked at this photo, it still worked for me. And I think for me it's because it sort of captures the ghost-like essence of a leopard. This project would not have been possible without the help of the locals who really showed me where the leopards were, gave me tips on the best places that I could set up my cameras. And so without their help, really, I wouldn't have achieved anything. So I must thank Louisa, the landowner, whose generosity really enabled the whole project, and then her two staff members in particular, Mohammed and Patrick, who were there working with me every day, helping me find the best spots and looking after my cameras when I wasn't around. So a big thank you to them. Thank you to many other people in Laikipia who helped with this project, and my family as well for really supporting me through this. So yes, thanks to many people. It really is a team effort, this photograph.
Congratulations, Will. Menudo paisaje se intuye a tus espaldas. Las aves habitan en todos los biomas terrestres y también en todos los océanos. Destacan por su inteligencia y por la capacidad de transmisión cultural de conocimientos a nuevas generaciones. Además, juegan un papel ecológico vital. Son enlaces críticos dentro de las grandes cadenas y redes que existen en el ecosistema. No quisiera ser yo el que tuviera que escoger a los ganadores. Madre mía, qué nivel. Pero bueno, vamos con el segundo premio, que es para The FEST de Mateusz Piasik de Polonia. Y el primer premio es para A Big Fool de Brett Charman de Reino Unido.
I was really happy to win this award just because it's been such a tough 18 months, and to win an award in such a prestigious competition is a real honour, and to have such esteemed people win it before me sort of means a lot to me as well. So yeah, it's a great piece of news to receive. So I was on Skoma Island, which is off the coast of Wales in the UK, and a puffin kept landing with fish at a certain point and then disappearing into the really thick vegetation, into the bracken. And I sort of waited for it to come back, hoping that it would come back, and eventually it landed right in front of me, and then sort of ducked underneath a branch, and it was really sort of heavy with rain at that moment, and I just got it at that exact moment as it came through sort of the thick vegetation. I couldn't actually look at my photographs properly until I got back to the mainland, so it was a couple of days afterwards, maybe 3-4 days actually, and I thought, oh, that's a bit different. I've never really seen a picture of a puffin like that before. I actually thought it looked a bit like a dinosaur, to be honest, coming through some tropical rainforest. So yeah, it was something pretty unusual. Oh, so I do actually have a bit of a funny story, just in the fact that when I was sort of sat there waiting, it was really heavy rain, so I was soaking wet, pretty cold, and Wales is not the nicest place on a cold, rainy day. But I did actually get pooed on by a puffin not long before this photograph was taken. Luckily, it didn't go on the camera, so that was the important bit. So that was nice and clean for the moment that I captured the image. I would like to dedicate this picture to just my family and my girlfriend, who are so supportive and have always sort of helped me and understood when I'm away, usually sort of at weird hours and getting up early and late. So yeah, just for them, for their continued understanding and support as I've sort of made my way in the industry.
Congratulations, Brett. Hay muchos animales que no reciben la atención que se merecen y que juegan un papel esencial en los ecosistemas, entre ellos los insectos, los anfibios y los reptiles. El hecho de acercarnos a estas especies desde el mundo de la fotografía nos permite advertir de la fragilidad de su hábitat y también de las amenazas para su supervivencia. Desde aquí queremos resaltar que su presencia es clave para la conservación y la mejora de la biodiversidad. El segundo premio es para Nice Catch de Christian Siegler de Alemania. Y el primer premio es para Huevos de Esperanza de Jaime Culebras de España.
Hola a todos, muchísimas gracias, especialmente por el cariño enorme que tengo a MontPhoto. Aquí ando con café, que en 5 horas y media salgo a campo a ver serpientes y ranas, como de costumbre. Y nada, que os voy a contar de la foto un poquillo, ¿no? Y la foto la hice en los Andes, en un bosque nublado, aquí en Ecuador. Iba en busca de esta puesta porque tenía ganas de sacar una foto de puesta de huevos de rana de cristal que impactara. Y la imagen la tenía en la cabeza hacía años. Y bueno, me fui con mi novia y nos fuimos a este bosque, y después de varios días que no conseguíamos las fotos, veíamos la especie, alguna puesta, pero no convencía, nos metimos bosque a través en busca de otro riachuelo. Estaba lloviendo bastante y al final encontramos el riachuelo, y caminando por él, bueno, tras pasar un tronco, ahí estaba la puesta delante de nuestras narices, pidiendo a gritos que le hiciera la foto. Hice la foto con la ayuda de ella, me sujetaba el flash así un poquito detrás para que entrase la luz trasera y la iluminase como una bombilla, y el resultado, que era el que tenía tal cual en la cabeza, salió. Así que súper contento por ello. Para finalizar, como siempre, súper importante decir que gracias a las croquetas de Carmen, ya sabéis que influyen mucho en mi fotografía, y que mucho ánimo, que va quedando poco para que pasemos estos tiempos difíciles y que tengo muchas ganas de daros un abrazo. Hasta luego.
Muchísimas felicidades, Jaime, qué serio te pones cuando quieres. Las plantas son los componentes esenciales para mantener la salud de muchas comunidades y ecosistemas, la destrucción de las cuales traería como consecuencia la desaparición de especies y cambios desastrosos en la erosión, en el flujo del agua y en última instancia del clima. Vamos con el segundo premio. El segundo premio es para Mushroom Army de Imre Potió de Hungría. Y el primer premio también es para Sport Ghost de Imre Potió de Hungría.
Üdvözlök mindenkit, Potyó Imre vagyok, és a Duna-Ipoly Nemzeti Park Igazgatóság munkatársaként dolgozom itt a Börzsönyben, Magyarországon. Én 2007-ben kezdtem el foglalkozni a természetfotózással, és legkeresebb témáim azok a különleges kompozíciók, amelyeket az éjszaka és az alkonyat fényében örökítek meg legtöbbször, tehát célom az újszerűség. Sok-sok éve nevezek erre nagyszerű pályázatra, azonban még sohasem sikerült kategóriát nyerni, mindig highly recommended elismeréseket kaptam. Most viszont a növények kategóriát megnyertem a Spóra Szellem című képemmel nagy örömömre, és további 2 fotóm is bekerült a legjobbak közé. Szeretem és régóta fotózom a gombákat, és ami legizgalmasabb szerintem az a különböző gombafejüknek a spóra szórása. Mind közül a leglátványosabb talán a pöfetegnek a felhője. Ezek az apró gombák szeptemberben kezdenek előbújni a talajból, itt a Börzsönyben, és ilyenkor millió számra szállnak ki az apró kis spórákat termőtestekből, melyeket a leggyengébb áramlatok és légáramlatok is elképesztő formációba rendeznek másodpercről másodpercre. Hát sok-sok éve fotózom ezeket a kilöveléseket, különböző ellenfényes megvilágításokkal kísérletezve az éjszakába, vakufénnyel. És a tavalyi szezon talán leglátványosabb felvétele ez lett, ez a forma. Végezetül pedig gratulálni szeretnék minden sikeres természetfotósnak itt a MontPhoton. Sziasztok!
Congratulations, Imre, por partida doble. Buena parte de los terrenos que se encuentran en la superficie terrestre hoy ya han sido modificados por el ser humano. Pero aún quedan algunos paisajes, los llamados paisajes naturales, que se han mantenido lejos de la acción del hombre. Aunque existan cada vez menos espacios de este tipo, nos gusta descubrirlos y resaltar su belleza. Aquí van algunos ejemplos. El segundo premio es para The Come of the Mist de Imanol Zubiarre Bengoechea de España. Y el primer premio es para The Astonishing de Mauro Tronto de Italia.
Ciao a tutti! È un piacere poter condividere con voi l'emozione di ricevere il primo premio nella categoria paesaggio in uno dei più prestigiosi concorsi internazionali di fotografia naturalistica come il MontPhoto. Ringrazio per questo la giuria, l'organizzazione del concorso, la mia famiglia e quelli che hanno sempre creduto in me, nel mio lavoro e nella forza di queste immagini. The Astonishing è frutto di tecnica, tenacia e un pizzico di fortuna. Decidere quel 24 marzo di spostarmi dal sud dell'Islanda fino al nord, affrontando oltre 6 ore di viaggio, nella speranza di trovare qualche sprazzo di luce e di sereno, come previsto dal meteo, è stata una grossa scommessa. Ma se è vero che la fortuna aiuta gli audaci, beh allora eccomi qua a raccontarvi quella notte magica, nella quale le emozioni sono sfociate in urla e salti di gioia, fino alle 2 del mattino che, uniti al fragore delle acque dirompenti della cascata, hanno firmato un momento indimenticabile della mia fotografia. The Astonishing è un'immagine che, pur ritraendo un luogo molto frequentato, ne restituisce l'autenticità in un'atmosfera di singolare e stupefacente magia. La contemporanea presenza di luce lunare, aurora boreale e arcobaleno mi ha permesso di descrivere in uno scatto i perfetti contorni di una natura straordinaria, un attimo irripetibile che vivrà per sempre nel mio cuore e nella mia mente. Un caro saluto amici dall'Italia, nella speranza di ritrovarci tutti insieme presto e di unire insieme questa nostra grande passione per la fotografía. A presto, un saluto.
Enhorabuena, Mauro. Ahora nos vamos a un ecosistema castigado como pocos, sobreexplotado, altamente contaminado y cada vez con mayor número de residuos en contacto con nosotros a través de un litoral cada vez más destruido. No debemos olvidar que los organismos vivos del mundo subacuático son la base de todas las demás formas de vida en la Tierra. El segundo premio se queda en casa. Es para Protección de Marc Casanovas Félix de España. Y el primer premio es para Bajo la Luna de Xavier Salvador Costa de España.
Ostras, pues la verdad es que es un honor ganar este premio. El nivel es altísimo siempre, en todas las ediciones. Participan fotógrafos de toda Europa o prácticamente de todo el mundo y es un honor haber ganado esta categoría. Y bueno, la foto la hice en las tardes de finales de verano o otoño, que normalmente en nuestras costas pues llegan las medusas con las corrientes. Y me gusta terminar el día así relajándome en el agua, jugando un poco a hacer fotografías con ellas, porque tenemos el mar muy planchado y entran centenares, entonces es muy entretenido. Y la verdad es que esta foto es una de las muchas que hice. Y al principio cuando vi la foto pensaba que como era la caída de la tarde y ya había la luna, pues que había fotografiado un poco la medusa con el reflejo de la luna arriba. Y luego cuando llegué a casa y amplié la foto, pues me di cuenta de que en realidad pues, era la pluma de un pájaro que justo había quedado en la comida que tenía la medusa en el umbral. Entonces fue graciosa la foto y por eso la presenté. Y bueno, agradecer a mi pareja por acompañarme al agua por las tardes, a jugar, a hacer 4 fotos con las medusas. Y bueno, a todos los que me apoyan en el mundo de la fotografía submarina y a Cresi por todo el material y por todas las facilidades que me pone para poder ir al agua.
Impresionante, Xavier. Pues la verdad es que yo estaba convencido que era la luna. Desarrollar el sentido crítico sobre la naturaleza que nos rodea a través de la imagen es altamente eficaz. Son imprescindibles imágenes documentales, impactantes, tremendas y a veces dolorosas, para recalcar aquellos tipos de actividades humanas que inciden directa o indirectamente sobre el medio ambiente y sobre la vida. El segundo premio es para The Face of All Apathy, de Neil Aldrich, de Reino Unido. Y el primer premio es para Cult, de Mark Graf, de Austria.
Hello from Austria. I feel honored and blessed to have one of my images in this year's selection of MontPhoto contest, and thanks to the jury for helping me drawing a bit more attention onto the topic of big predators in Central Europe. So, muchas gracias from Austria. It took me quite a while to gain access to the procedure of bear culling in Slovenia. As you can imagine, that's a quite controversial topic, so I wasn't really welcome as a photographer. But eventually find a hunter that was willing to have me on location that day and give me the opportunity to document the procedure of culling a bear in Slovenia. What interested me most in taking this image was the fact that Slovenia is one of the densest bear populations on the entire planet and has rising numbers of bears over the past decades. So they believe that it is necessary to somehow manage and control the numbers of bears, especially with regard to the acceptance of people. So they use culling, legal hunting, as one of the main methods to control the bear numbers, which I think is not the most sustainable. According to many experts' opinions, and my opinion as well, it would have been much more efficient to reduce the number of supplementary feeding in the forest and set up or establish migration corridors to the north to my home Austria and to the west to Italy, which would also help somehow reduce and balance the bear population in Slovenia. So as you can see, there's still a lot of work to do, especially from our side, from the human side, to somehow work on this coexistence with big predators in Central Europe. And many thanks to you for giving me the opportunity to draw a bit more attention to this field of big predator and human coexistence.
Congratulations, Mark. Una imagen realmente muy impactante. Gracias por vuestro trabajo. Y vamos con la categoría para sugerir y sorprender, despertar emociones, disfrutar contemplándolas. La naturaleza que, como fuente de inspiración, nos transporta a nuevas realidades más allá de lo evidente. Vamos a ver las fotos de nuestros finalistas de este año. El segundo premio es para Lionfish and Tridacna de Sergei Shanin de Rusia. Y el primer premio es para Yin and Yang de George Popa de Rumanía.
Hello everybody, my name is George Popa and I'm a pharmacist and a nature photographer. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic prevents us from being together at Lloret del Mar. But I want to take this opportunity to tell you a few words about Cuejdel Lake, which is the largest natural dam in Romania and a special place for me that I'm constantly photographing for the last 7 years. It is the place where I refine my photographic technique and the most rewarding place for me when it comes to nature photography. Yin and Yang, it's a photo I shot from the drone right before the lake froze completely. It was an unexpected time for me and of course a pleasant surprise. I also want to thank you for this prize and to congratulate the organizers for their efforts in organizing this competition in such difficult times for the entire planet. I also want to thank my family, my close friends, and the last but not least, my wife, who is always by my side. Thank you.
Congratulations, George. Tu trabajo no deja de sorprendernos cada año. Bien, por segundo año consecutivo, y esperemos que sea el último que pasemos así, seguimos afectados por la pandemia del coronavirus. Son tiempos difíciles y de ahí esta categoría especial creada como estímulo a los fotógrafos que han tenido dificultades para viajar o desplazarse. Fotografía desde casa pretende mostrar esa naturaleza más cercana a nosotros que a veces pasa desapercibida, esa que convive con nosotros y observamos en o desde nuestros hogares. Y el premio es para Fox Drinking from the Pool de Milan Radicic de Hungría. Y llega el momento de presentar otra de las grandes novedades de MontPhoto, los reportajes fotográficos de naturaleza. Contar una historia con muchas fotos es muy difícil porque deben tener calidad individual y poder narrativo combinado. Requiere esfuerzo, dedicación y mucha planificación para transmitir un mensaje coherente. Atentos, porque hemos recibido historias muy variadas, historias que inspiran, que provocan y que nos revelan lo bonito, lo heterogéneo y lo significativo que es nuestro mundo natural. Y el premio es para Tras la máscara de Joan de la Malla de España.
Estoy muy contento por haber recibido este premio y quiero agradecer al jurado y al equipo de MontPhoto que hayan tenido en consideración este proyecto para la categoría de portfolio. Ha sido un trabajo realizado durante aproximadamente 1 año y medio, con una primera fase un poco más dura, más desagradable, en la que me dediqué a documentar esta problemática de los espectáculos con macacos en las calles de varias ciudades de Indonesia, de la mano de una organización que es Jakarta Animal Life Network, con quien trabajamos estrechamente para lograr una prohibición a nivel nacional, que finalmente conseguimos. Y luego el trabajo tuvo una segunda parte mucho más agradable, que fue documentar la recuperación de estos animales, el trabajo en los centros de recuperación y finalmente el largo viaje hasta su reintroducción en los bosques a los que pertenecen y de los que no deberían haber salido nunca. Muchas gracias.
Y ahora llega el momento de nuestros jóvenes. El hecho de que los jóvenes se aficionen a la fotografía de naturaleza con los sacrificios que esta disciplina conlleva tanto para ellos como para sus familias, nos parece una cuestión digna de mención. Esperamos que con el tiempo sigan disfrutando y adquiriendo los valores de amor y respeto por la naturaleza que dicha modalidad llevan implícitos. Los premios jóvenes se otorgan en igual cuantía a 3 premiados infantiles, participantes menores de 15 años, y a 3 premiados juveniles, participantes con edades comprendidas entre los 15 y los 17 años. La dirección del concurso quiere felicitarles a todos por el elevadísimo nivel en la calidad y en la cantidad de obras recibidas. Y ahora es el momento de otorgar los 3 premios especiales entre todas las fotos presentadas al concurso MontPhoto. Premio especial Be Free Olympus para Todo llegará, de Diego Estepa Igual, de España. Premio Espacial Comarcas de Girona para Protección, de Marc Casanovas Félix, de España. Premio Especial Lloret de Mar para Líneas en la Arena, de Pablo Ntutum, de España. Estamos llegando a un punto álgido de la noche, el momento de conocer el proyecto premiado en la Beca Bienal de MontPhoto y el Premio MontPhoto 2021. Vayamos primero con la beca, uno de los premios que más satisfacción nos produce. Ser motores del desarrollo de un proyecto fotográfico de conservación y darle difusión es desde su creación uno de los valores innovadores de MontPhoto. Nuevamente, en esta edición hemos recibido una enorme cantidad de proyectos venidos de todos los continentes y con diversidad de propuestas interesantísimas. La selección siempre es difícil por la responsabilidad que conlleva, porque quizá sin la ayuda que representa la beca, los proyectos deben aparcarse o no se pueden realizar. Algunos de los proyectos recibidos requieren de una gran emergencia y otros pueden ocasionar un enorme impacto. Otros son imprescindibles para el conocimiento de grandes cuestiones ambientales y otros igualmente imprescindibles para ayudar a salvar una especie o un hábitat. Sin más dilación, vamos a conocer la beca 2020-2021. El proyecto ganador es para Macá Tobiano, un nuevo amanecer, de Adriana Claudia Sanz, de Argentina.
Mi nombre es Adriana Sanz, soy fotógrafa de naturaleza y vivo en Chubut, Patagonia, Argentina. Hoy estoy muy feliz de haber sido seleccionada entre tan prestigiosos fotógrafos para desarrollar mi proyecto fotográfico con la beca MontPhoto. Solo en el sur de la Patagonia de Argentina habita el macá tobiano, una especie en peligro crítico de extinción. La población de macaes hoy en el mundo no llega a los 800 individuos. En los últimos 25 años ha disminuido un 80% y podría extinguirse la próxima década. Numerosas organizaciones e investigadores trabajan para revertir esta situación a través de monitoreos, censos, telemetría, control de especies invasoras y exóticas, construcción de nidos balsas y recría de pichones de aquellos huevos que son descartados por sus padres. Durante todo un año estaré acompañando al programa Patagonia, al proyecto Macá Tobiano de Aves Argentinas, en las distintas etapas del macá, en la invernada que hace en la costa atlántica de la provincia de Santa Cruz, la migración al noroeste, a la meseta de altura, a los lagos y las lagunas que allí se localizan, su cortejo, reproducción y cría de nuevos pichones. Además, estoy muy contenta de poder poner a la fotografía al servicio de programas de conservación, para poder mostrar además el duro trabajo que hacen investigadores y voluntarios en la conservación y recupero de esta especie tan delicada. Y todo esto de la mano de MontPhoto. Muchas gracias.
Felicidades, Adriana. Nos vemos el próximo año en Lloret, donde presentarás este interesante proyecto y el trabajo que habrás realizado. Y ahora sí, sin más dilación, vamos a conocer el vencedor de la presente edición. Este premio se concede a una de las 10 ganadoras de las categorías anteriores. El jurado, como hemos dicho antes, lo tuvo realmente muy difícil a la hora de escoger. Con este vídeo que os vamos a mostrar a continuación, os vamos a recordar todas las ganadoras anteriores antes de anunciar el nombre del ganador absoluto. Y el premio final es para Ghost, de Will Burrard Lucas, de Reino Unido.
I'm delighted to be coming to you now from my home in the UK, this time as overall winner of the competition, which obviously I am delighted about and really thrilled. I'd like to thank again the competition organisers, the judges and all the people that I thanked in my previous video. Clearly this photo was taken with a camera trap, and my journey towards developing the equipment that I used for this photo and the techniques that I applied to this project and ultimately resulted in this photo has been a very long one. It really started back in 2009 when I first created BeetleCam, this remote control camera buggy which I used to capture these wide angle remote pictures of animals. Cam served me very well for many years, but there was a problem with it, and that was that it could only really be used to photograph quite bold and inquisitive animals that wouldn't be spooked by something moving through the grass. And so I knew that to progress any further and really to capture this perspective of a more variety of animals, I needed a new tool, and clearly camera traps were the answer. So in 2012-13 is when I really started to experiment with camera trapping, and at the time there was nothing that really worked the way I wanted, and so I created my first sensor. It was a prototype that was basically just an adapted security sensor which I modified to trigger my camera. And having proved that that worked and taken a few pictures in Zambia with it, I then continued to evolve it into what has today become the Camtraption system. This particular project really started, it was pure luck really. I was in Savo in August 2018. And I was actually there with a whole load of my camera traps to photograph rhinos at night. And it was then that I got this call. It was just a call to discuss a safari itinerary. And it was with one of my friends who was a very experienced safari guide. And he told me, he was suggesting places we could visit, and then just made this comment in passing that if we headed up to Laikipia Wilderness Camp, there was a chance we could see a black leopard. And that's a comment that really stopped me in my tracks, because ever since childhood, I've thought the black leopards are pretty much the coolest animals in the world, and so I never thought I'd ever get a chance to photograph one, particularly in Africa where they're so incredibly rare. So when I heard this, I knew I had to try and photograph it, even if my chances of success were very low. And that was the start of what became a year-long project. I got my first photos of the black leopard after a few days up there, and then continued to push myself to get more and more variety and capture images, that didn't just show the animal but also brought in that sort of nighttime scene with stars and moonlight and things. And so this was a camera trap that I'd set up initially for the black leopard, but that whole time there were other leopards around. There was the leopard's mother and father who were often around. The father is the leopard shown in this picture, and he was a big spotty male leopard, much bigger than the black leopard, who was only about 2 years old at the time. And so he was at about the age where he was going to get pushed out of his mother's territory by this male. And so while the male was around, the black leopard would steer clear. And so sometimes I got a little frustrated with this male leopard, because whenever he was around I wasn't getting my black leopard photos, but then to be getting photos like this of the spotty leopard, I couldn't complain too much. So some of my favourite pictures from the project are actually of the spotty leopard. One question I'm often asked is, what's the difference between a black leopard and a black panther? And it's quite simple really. A black panther is any black big cat. And so in practice that either tends to be a black leopard in Africa and Asia, or a black jaguar in the Americas. Another thing that's interesting is that these black melanistic cats still have the spots under their coats. So they have these black darker spots in amongst the rest of the black fur. They're referred to as shadow spots, and under certain lighting conditions you can actually see the spots coming through in the pictures. This was a project that I couldn't really see myself ever ending, because while I was still getting images of the black leopard and images like this of the spotty leopards, it was very hard to stop, and so I sort of was just continuing with it, trying to get better and better. But then COVID hit and I wasn't able to go out to Kenya for a few months, and during that time I then put together the photos that I did have and realised that I did have enough to finish the book I was working on, and so I spent lockdown working on my Black Leopard book. So I'd like to end by once again thanking everyone involved in this competition, you guys for watching this far, and I look forward to hopefully seeing the MontPhoto family in person, perhaps in a future year when we're all able to travel more freely. Thanks again, bye.
Muchísimas gracias, Will. Celebrar nuestro 25 aniversario con esta foto como ganadora es un sueño. Es para nosotros un honor premiar este tipo de trabajos que van más allá, que valoran al animal en su entorno y que sobre todo pertenecen a proyectos de larga duración. Una recompensa a la tenacidad, a la dedicación y al trabajo duro. Y con esto despedimos esta gala MontPhoto 2021, esperando que hayáis disfrutado de esta gala que otra vez hemos tenido que celebrar online. Los ganadores de los sorteos se anunciarán en nuestra página web montphoto.com en los próximos días. Os prometemos un MontPhoto de fiesta y celebración en 2022, si todo va bien, en el que celebraremos nuestros 25 años como se merecen. Pero lo que más ilusión nos hace es celebrarlo con todos vosotros, que al final sois los que hacéis este festival tan especial. La gala ha terminado, pero MontPhoto continúa. Ahora podéis disfrutar de una mesa redonda con Cathy Moran, Florian Müller y Kate Wilson en riguroso directo. No os lo perdáis. Hasta pronto. See you. Fins l'any que ve.
Menuda selección, menuda gala y menudo trabajazo de todos los fotógrafos que han participado en la edición de este año. Gracias, Joan Romà, gracias por ese arte que tienes y por revelarnos año tras año a los ganadores del concurso. Pero también queremos agradeceros a todos los galardonados vuestra colaboración con vuestros vídeos. Muchísimas gracias. But now, before moving on to the round table with Cathy Moran, Keith Wilson and Florian Müller, in which we will discuss the direction wildlife photography is taking, we want to talk to you about a project that MontPhoto has partnered with, a project for the new generations.
The world we live in is changing rapidly. The daily news is filled with alarming reports on the progressing climate crisis, increasing environmental pollution, species extinction, and the loss of biodiversity. Even the corona pandemic stems from human intervention in existing ecosystems. As photographers, we have the opportunity to raise public awareness on such pressing topics and to encourage change. The Changing Planet Network for Young Photographers brings the relationship between people and their environment into focus. As an international network, Changing Planet organises educational photographic projects, exhibitions and symposia. It offers younger generations a platform to present their own photographic work and to acquire media skills, entering into a dialogue with one another and the world.
It is very important to us to give the new generations a voice.
and we want to encourage them to use photography to tell the stories that are important to them. Teachers, schools, environmental organizations, please do not hesitate to contact us if you are interested in joining the movement. Y ahora vamos un momentito a publicidad y en breves instantes nos acompañarán nuestros invitados de lujo.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to MontPhoto 21. Welcome to the roundtable with Keith Wilson on our left, a photo editor and a great friend of MontPhoto, Florian Müllers from Germany, here in the middle, one of the directors of Wild Wonders of Europe, and Kathy Moran, also who's becoming happily our friend here in MontPhoto from the US, Deputy Director of National Geographic, the photography. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to MontPhoto 21.
Hello, the three of you.
Hello. Hello there.
How are you? Let's move straight to the first question we have prepared for you. And this is going to go to you, Florian. You've been part of this year's jury, and it's been a pleasure having you with us. Could you give us some behind the scenes, maybe some stories that you want to share about the results, how was the jury process, and so on?
Yeah, I would love to do that, actually. First and foremost, of course, I would like to thank everyone at MontPhoto who went through really great endeavors to make this happen. It's always very different from meeting in person, of course, as you can all imagine. If you have such a jury meeting, it's much more intense and much more balanced, I would also like to say, if you really can speak to each other face to face. And I think Keith and Kathy will both agree on that, and also will the other judges. And I'm most grateful to these lovely judges that I had the pleasure to work with during these days. The thing is that if you're just looking at these images online, if you're just watching them on the little screen on your computer, even if you have a bigger screen aside, it's just so different from looking at them when you either see them in the old days in a projector or you see them through now a beamer or anything. But I think the selection this year was really wonderful. There were some categories where we really struggled to find a winner in the way that there were so many good pictures. So I do think that especially in these most wanted categories, birds, mammals, but more and more also in the category man and nature, there's a very strong photography talent that can be seen, and we really enjoyed judging these categories where we had where we really saw the power and impact of modern day photography. That was a lot of fun, and it was also a lot of debate, a lot of discussions. But yeah, here you go. I think some of you might have seen the selection. I hope most of you are happy with it. It was great fun, and yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys. It was a great pleasure, and it was a lot of fun to be able to participate in that session from our side. Kathy, Keith, I think you had a little glimpse to the photos as well. What was your impression at this year's selection? Maybe we can start with you, Kathy.
Well, I thought it was a beautiful set of photographs, and I can really sympathize with the jury because as they were showing the images that were leading up to the second and the category winners, I mean, there was just so much really powerful work that was being shown. The thing that really stood out for me that I most loved was the nature from home category. And I think, you know, especially given what we've all experienced these last 2 years, to have a category like that recognizes the challenges that everyone has faced. I thought that was incredibly special. So loved you all for doing that.
Thank you, Kathy. Keith, what about you? What were your impressions?
Oh,
Very, very favourable. I mean, you know, I can only repeat what Florian said about the difficulty it always is to be a judge in these competitions, particularly when you have to choose, you know, a winner, and there's so many that could be worthy. But it, you know, it's a democratic process, and I think, you know, with a competition like MontPhoto, it's for me, it's like looking at the whole selection. You know, it's almost like looking at a portfolio of images and just seeing. I like coming away from a competition judging, feeling the whole thing is full of strength in all of the categories, and also what Kathy says about, you know, the time that we've been through in the last couple of years now, nearly a couple of years with the pandemic, does to have something like, you know, Nature at Home, or, you know, a particular focus on nature and wildlife that is more accessible, I think is a really good idea, and you know, one that obviously should stick. I think I speak to a lot of photographers who increasingly are saying that you know, you should just focus as much as you can on your own locality. You know, whether that be in an urban environment or a more rural environment, because if you keep going back to the same locations, you'll keep taking better pictures, and your powers of observation improve with that practice as well. It's not about darting over to all corners of the world to pick up something exotic. You can become experts in your own abode, in your own home territory. And so a category like that is definitely worth maintaining and flagging up.
And for the three of you, I mean, how important you think photo contests are in this in the photographic scene? Or?
I mean, the meaning, the topic of the talk, the roundtable, is the future of photography and so on. Contests nowadays are becoming more and more, well, not important, but more
popular.
Popular. They are showing up in every country. There are new contests and so on, and photographers put a lot of effort into them. From your point of view, contests, but also festivals, what do you think is the role they play for the future of nature and wildlife photography?
Kathy, do you want to start on that for us?
Yeah, we had talked a little bit about this amongst ourselves, and I think for me, most of the festivals, they go beyond just the competition. I mean, it's wonderful to see the work that's entered. I mean, whether you're part of the jury, whether you're the public who gets to come and experience that photography, it's you know, I think it's great for the photographers. It's great for the audience. But I really think that what has evolved over the last few years with the festivals is that they create a sense of community, and they give photographers and editors that opportunity to come together, to meet, to share experiences, to share the work, whatever it is. But I really think that the value of the festivals is the continuity of the community, that together, this network, you know, it's MontPhoto, it's GDT, it's Wildlife Photographer of the Year, they all build on each other, and I think that they give the photographers so much more than just, you know, the possibility of winning a category or winning the overall competition. It's a critical, I think, bonding experience, both personally and professionally. So for me, these festivals and competitions have real value.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, and you know what, personally, and I think I'm speaking for the others here too, is that we've really noticed how much we've missed them, you know, this year and last year. It's like there's been a huge gap in our lives by not being able to go to the festivals in person and experience this community and the engagement. And I mean, for so many of us, it's about, you know, the only opportunities we get to actually see each other as a group, but also to see new work, new photographers, and to mentor, even if it's, you know, it usually is in a very unofficial, informal capacity. That's part of the strength of building the community and making nature photography a very vibrant and dynamic thing, because you're sharing ideas, you're sharing experiences, and it's definitely become a much more collaborative pursuit now too. I think that's something I've noticed in recent years, is it's becoming, and I think it's for the better, that there is more collaborative work going on amongst photographers, but also with editors, with writers, to create these extraordinary stories and more in-depth work, which is far more informative and has a lot of potential in terms of how it can get broader messages to other parts of the world.
I think, Keith, you mentorship is something that has really been critical with festivals. And I think that, everyone has done the very best they can under the circumstances of the last few years, but there's very little that can replace, meeting someone, having a cup of coffee, building that relationship. You may not work with that photographer for years to come, but now you know them, they know you. It's that bond that's been established, and you're, as an editor, you're now invested in wanting to help that photographer grow, see them grow. So it may take a long time, but the seed has been planted, and now you know each other, and
Exactly.
not much can replace that.
Yeah, it's a harder thing to do online.
Let me step
I would
in
like
just
to
for a
add
bit.
one more thing, maybe, John, if I may.
Definitely.
Maybe from a photographer's perspective, if I look back at the beginning of my career, and if I look at young photographers nowadays as an organizer with the GDT competition, I see that it is still for many a huge career boost to be seen on these competitions, because nowadays they attract so much more media than they did when there were just a few around. Every big magazine, whether it is online or print, reports about it. There are TV shows about it. The organizers go a very long way to make this a very, very special event also for the photographers. So if I remember back to my first appearances at World Photographer of the Year, I felt so excited and so nervous at the same time to sit at the same table with all these giants in nature photography and have the chance to chat with them. And there we are back again to this, communication, and to this meeting, to this making connections with other people. And this is so important, especially nowadays when you're really struggling as a young photographer, maybe finding your way, because there are so many out there, and you need this community, and you need this feeling and this attention that you get through this competition, and the winning image that you have there. This is such a boost for your motivation to go on and to keep it going, because it can be so hard from times. So, I really think that is still the case for many photographers, and a good reason for them to take part in competitions.
That's a perfect lead on to my next question that I had prepared for you, Florian, actually. So I wanted to ask you, so you've been for many years involved with the GDT, you know how a community works from the inside, and you have known yourself many young photographers over the years. And we have here at MontPhoto
really old, doesn't it?
We had many newcomers here at MontPhoto being awarded. We have the young generations and so on, and many of these young photographers coming up. So they are very focused on winning festivals, lone images or alone images and so on. But what would you tell them regarding the narrative, the story?
Yeah, it's always very hard, of course, to give advice, but as before, the three of us, we have talked about that as well from our different perspectives, and the other ones will add to that as well. I would stick to the photographer's perspective. When we had the idea, for example, for Wild Wonders, the collective, the collection of photographers, the collaborative effort that Keith mentioned before, is something that I see as a very powerful one nowadays, where there's so much great talent around, and so much talent that can actually be seen through social media and other channels. I think teamwork, and not only teaming up with other photographers, but as Keith mentioned, with editors, with videographers, everyone bringing in their own skills, their own talent, and their own networks, which is sometimes even more important to get out there, to get the publications, and to get the attention by the public. I think this, if I would have to start now, I would look into that direction and yeah, try to build a team, and on the other side, on the other hand, work on my own, maybe smaller or bigger projects, whatever. But this team can be a really crucial, also economically, a very crucial role in young photographers' careers, I think.
Definitely. Kathy, you have you've been in touch with many photographers along the years as well, and you've been next to them, following their work and so on. Do you see a trend maybe now of the photographers coming more often together and collaborating?
In my experience, rarely, but that just happens to be the nature of storytelling within the structure of National Geographic. But that said, I think Keith, you really seem to specialize in projects where collaboration is key. I mean, what you're currently doing with the team who are producing the photography for foxes, what Britta and the team did, what you and Joanne have done. I love that approach where there truly is strength in numbers and strength in different visions. And I think you can really see that so much conservation work is really benefiting from the power of that collective photography. So yes, I think on a broader scale, we've been seeing more and more of that. I think there's always going to be room for that individual voice and that individual narrative. I don't think that one takes away from the other, but I do think that as photographers and editors are tackling these much broader projects, to see the photographers and editors coming together like that has really been gratifying.
Keith, I think that's a perfect lead on to you.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
No, I mentioned that that was actually a perfect lead on to you, so that you can follow up on
right,
that.
yeah. It's, ultimately, it comes down to the strength of the story, and whether it's someone working themselves alone or a group, if they share the same vision for that story and for what they're trying to cover. With something like Hidden and working with Joanne, it was very much working with her family of photographers, but who had been working pretty much as anonymous individuals for a long time, and this for them was an incredible opportunity to not just get their own individual work seen, but to see this whole genre of photography seen in a collectible, cohesive, physical form for the first time. And that was so the power of that work was actually amplified by the delivery, which of course was the project, the book itself, and the exhibition, and naturally, of course, all the media coverage that came along with it. And that, so to go back to what Kathy was saying, it doesn't matter whether it's just someone working alone or as in the case of the Fox book that we're working on at the moment, there's 3 photographers, or 30 or 40 photographers if you're doing something like Photographers Against Wildlife Crime. It is about the strength of the story and what the objective is and what you're hoping to cover and expose for everyone's attention. And sometimes sometimes the sum is greater as a whole than the individual parts. And when that works, yes, it is very gratifying. And you see that obviously in the attention that you naturally do get from the media coverage and just getting people to engage with the subject for the first time. That's been incredibly gratifying to all of us, that whether it's wildlife crime, whether it's the hidden animals in our food chain, or foxes, a much maligned species, particularly here in the UK. If it's getting more people connected to those stories, then you're immediately succeeding in your objective. And of course, photography is the most powerful and immediate way of doing that.
In a way, I mean, I think you've answered our next question because we were
Oh,
going
I'm
to...
sorry.
No, not
It's
at all.
perfect,
Not
it's
at all
perfect.
perfect. No, because, I mean, we were going to ask you about the value of images nowadays. You were talking about Joanne, no? About the hidden books and showing people images of
Helping people
to see
creating bridges.
something that's hidden, no, to people, no. So
yeah,
in a way, I mean, it's the importance of the image.
Let me have a quick glimpse at the chat. I think we have some questions here. Jordi says, "Hey Kathy, it's very hard to find new ways to picture what nature has to show us. What do editors like Keith and you look for when you look for a good picture or a good story?"
Well, it's always going to be narrative for me. It has to be storytelling, and I don't think you divorce strong photographs from that narrative. They have to go hand in hand, but I think that the power is in the actual visual storytelling, and so that's always going to be of interest to me. And I think that the challenge for photographers is there are a lot of people who make beautiful standalone single images, and I think it's always that next step professionally is then how do you take your way of seeing and understand how to build the narrative. So I think that those are the elements that can never really be separated from each other.
Yeah, look, Sergey.
I think actually that answers
that's
right
right.
away what he's
because
mentioning.
he's saying how to get published in magazine, popular websites where you didn't win the overall award, but just one of the many finalists.
But I think that was a great answer for that. So working not in just one winning
one
image.
no? It's just getting the whole story, no?
But
I think again that is the power of the festivals and the power of the competitions is that it may be a single image on the wall, but if I'm really struck by that photograph, I'm going to find that photographer and I'm going to say, what else have you got? Increasingly competitions are, adding storytelling, reportage, portfolio categories. And as an editor, that I sort of feel like that's Christmas Day for me to see what's winning in those categories. But a single image is always going to make me try to find that photographer, because if you've made one great, strong image and it's on the wall and it's won that competition, then my hope is that you are capable of taking it to the next level. It's one image of possibly a story that you've already put together. So, I don't think you should discount the power and the recognition of the win.
Yeah. So it could be the starting point, the image. It could be the starting point for story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Florian, now we've heard the editor's point of view, but you yourself have been working on stories for many years as well, and you're very interested in telling more than just one picture, going beyond that. What would you say from your perspective as a photographer?
I do think that, well, let's put it another way. The single photograph from myself has never been as important as the whole bit, the 12, 15 images that you need to create that story, maybe even a little bit more. But this is what it burns down to in the end. And if you're thinking in story terms as a photographer, you will not be satisfied with this 2, 3 good images, because you want to dig deeper. You want to go beyond that level of what everybody could see, and these are the images then that will add to the story, that will push the narrative, that will enhance and enlarge the view of the people who look at the story afterwards. So to convince an editor, maybe these few core images are important, but as Kathy said before, it needs to work as a whole. And all of these images have to be strong, and it's very hard for a photographer, of course, to maintain that level. So not always you can excuse yourself with saying, yeah, but the story is so interesting, or that the topic is so interesting. The visual narrative still has to be top-notch as well, of course, but it's very, very hard to achieve that, I have to say. So having a good story in mind and putting it into pictures in the next step is two completely different things, and it can take you years. So, but I do think it is worth investing a lot of time, even if magazines nowadays are not capable anymore of paying you for throughout the whole story or whatever. It's your own satisfaction that you will get as a photographer if you reach that level, and if you say this is now a cohesive piece of work which is really on a level that will not only convince the editor but also reach out to the public in a way that there is this call to action that you maybe want to leave the audience with.
Look, I think there's a very interesting question made by Albert, and he said, I mean, to whom do you think he should go and look for help to help him in his visual narrative? I mean, how to make him a better storyteller?
Well, I mean, I think it's always good to, have a community of colleagues, whose opinions you trust, whether they're photographers, whether they're editors. I think the power of a portfolio review should never be underestimated. And I think I actually love to do them. And the one thing that I always try to ensure that a photographer understands is that any critique is meant to help. It's never meant to hurt. It's also one person's opinion, but it's always about looking at the work and trying to help you as a photographer see what's working, what's not working, what you have, what you're missing. So I think portfolio reviews are something that should never be underestimated. And I think whenever possible, photographers should be taking advantage of those. There are a couple of workshops that do take place here in the States, and I think that they are both, in terms of narrative, two of the very best boot camps for storytelling. And I don't know what the future holds for them. One is the Missouri Photo Workshop, which is out of the University of Missouri, and the other is the Eddie Adams Workshop, which takes place in upstate New York. They've both been done remotely these past 2 years, and I think that, again, even though there are pros and cons, the real pro there is that it's made it possible virtually for photographers from all over the world to have that opportunity to experience that narrative exercise over the course of, depending, one I think is 7 days, I think the other is 4. But I think whenever you have opportunities to participate in those exercises that can really stretch you as a photographer, it's a good thing to take advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. I can only really just emphasize what Kathy has said there, the value of portfolio reviews, even if they're quite brief. It's if you can get someone as experienced as Kathy or myself, or a photographer who is someone that you look up to and is working in perhaps a similar field, getting those opinions, that experienced, nuanced perspective of your work can actually help hugely. And and I think that was a really good line, that these critiques are meant to support and encourage. They're not meant as criticisms. It's and it's you've got to be open to hear this as well, and not, dare I say it, not be too precious about obviously images that I'm sure you place great personal attachment to. This is why we have editors, really, to basically make that dispassionate, detached observation and critical assessment of the portfolio. But we are here to help and actually to speed up what really needs to be done, to give guidance and direction on probably the areas that you do need to concentrate on and focus on going forward.
And I would rather encourage every photographer to show your work earlier than later, because
Yes.
that was a big mistake that I made at the beginning of my career, that I held back all the images because I didn't want to show them to anyone, not because I thought they were not good enough. I thought they were so good that everybody else would agree, of course, on that. And then you have to really, you know, when you meet someone who's an experienced editor, you really have to step back and you have to really tell yourself, this is not meant personally. This is not going to ruin the emotional connection that you have to this image. This is really going to help. And if you have a good instructor, a good mentor, this can really be a big boost and a big leap in your thinking of how you approach a story and how you how you continue, especially, and how you can do things better.
So, sorry.
Yeah, I just one last thing. I think one thing also that's really worth keeping in mind is that you may have that emotional attachment to images that you made early in your career, but you also at a certain point have to recognize that you are now better than that image. And you have grown beyond that image, and you make a print, put it on the wall, but take it out of your portfolio. And when someone says that to you, you need to listen because those earlier images are usually going to hold you back because you do get better. The work gets stronger. So you always need to be reviewing your portfolio, changing it up.
So I mean, if you don't get a very positive answer back, just you encourage them to keep working on it.
Keep pushing.
Absolutely.
Keep pushing,
Look, it's the same as a writer. I've gone back to some of the interviews I did 30 years ago, and I feel embarrassed because I'm better. Obviously, I'm better 30 years on than I was back then, and it's the same with photography. Of course, it's the same with any creative art form. You develop, you evolve, you mature, you become more experienced. You become, you've exposed yourself to more influences as well. And by influences, I don't mean social media influences. Perish the thought. So yeah, it's an evolution. It's a growing process, and frankly, it never ends. The day that you think you've learnt everything or you know everything, well, please don't waste my time, because that's just not true.
So I couldn't agree more with that. So after listening all your comments on that, so somehow it's like you're saying all these photographers, young people coming up, is just reach out, ask for help, because the help is actually there. And many have been in that situation, and they want to help the newcomers somehow, right?
And not to give up. I mean, if you don't get a positive review.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, I think the other thing to keep in mind is, again, the face-to-face is always going to be preferable because you're building a relationship. When you're reaching out to an editor cold, if you don't hear back right away, I always say to people, just pester me, because you're going to be one of 200 emails I'm getting that day, and I don't have a clue who you are. And I'm going to look at that and I'm going to think, oh, that could be interesting. I'll get back to that. I'll get back to that. But then it gets buried. So, don't give up. But also, just because you might have an exchange with an editor that doesn't result in, oh my God, I want this story, I'm going to publish it immediately and you're a genius. That's not necessarily, it doesn't mean you didn't just have a really good exchange. The story might not be ready, you might not be ready, but now you've established contact. Or it's just not right now. Stay in touch, stay in touch. So that, I think, that should always be the takeaway. You've just established a contact. Maybe today's your lucky day and I'm going to take that and send you a contract tomorrow, but that doesn't happen often. So, don't come in with unrealistic expectations in which you feel you've set yourself up to fail.
That's a beautiful advice. Somehow I'm hearing all the time, like helping each other, like working with each other. It's like coming all together. It feels like the community feeling and so on. And here at MontPhoto, we are working on creating a new community, a new platform, so young people can reach out and through MontPhoto and through other organizations, so that come together and create maybe something bigger. They maybe point together at the problem, try to solve them together. Maybe you want to add some final thoughts on communities, on working together to wrap it up, to wrap up this nice roundtable we had with you.
Ooh. I would say to that is, yeah, don't isolate yourself. That's for sure. It's ever so more important to, build your network at all sorts of levels, not just amongst your fellow photographers, but, editors, journalists, people that, scientists, because, we're, more and more of the great, certainly in the field of nature and wildlife, photojournalistic stories, they're collaborations with researchers, with scientists, and so many of the wonderful photographers practicing today are, started off as scientists, or, they've got PhDs themselves. So it's more than just photography. It's storytelling, it's communicating, it's exploring. And I do think photographers, particularly in this field, are today's explorers. Back in the 19th century, of course, they all came out of the Royal Geographical Society and went to various ends of the earth and never returned. And we thought they were heroes. Today, it is the photographers working with, with a research group in some far off place, and they're collaborating together on something that is a quest, that it's about discovery. And the photography obviously is a very, very important part of it, but it all adds up to the same thing, which is revealing something and telling a story about where you are and what you're seeing and why.
And have you seen, have you seen a difference or an evolution in the way that storytelling was about maybe 20 years back to nowadays, or you think it has this more or less the same structure?
Ooh. That's one for you, Kathy.
Thank you. Well, I think that the platforms have changed. I don't think that the nature of storytelling has changed. It's the ways in which we experience the stories.
Yes.
So I think that's probably the real difference. And what's exciting about that is that it does, again, allow for those different levels of collaboration that we were talking about earlier. Because if you're presenting your story now, digitally, that means you can use video, you can use audio, you can use stills. You're working with a writer to produce that text. So you have the potential to create a very different experience than what you were going to see on the printed page. So I think that's probably the biggest difference. Whether it's how podcast, utilizes. I mean, it's funny to think of radio using visuals, but they do. So there are all these different ways now in which I think all kinds of different storytelling aspects can come together and make for, a much richer experience. Even though I still am that old dog who loves the printed page. There's just so much more opportunity to work across platforms and with different forms of storytelling. So I think that's exciting.
We are.
It is. I mean, with that, of course, comes the requirement for photographers to be more multi-skilled than they were, say, even 20 years ago. No doubt about that. But we're seeing that in a new generation coming through. They're shooting video and they're doing podcasts as well. And it's a lot more multifaceted now.
I mean,
sure.
Matthew Barron, I remember he has a very popular podcast.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Yes, I've been a victim of one of his podcasts, and but yeah, he's brilliant. On his website, he has podcasts, and he interviews fellow photographers and but also editors, also picture library researchers as well. So it's worth listening to. He's built up quite a menu now. God, I hope Matt's listening. I'm giving a fantastic plug here. But he is, he is an example, and he shoots video as well. And yeah, you can't just be a still photographer anymore and expect to make. Especially starting up today. I mean, obviously there are people out there who are longer established who do, but particularly if you're starting out today, you've got to be able to do more than put a memory card in your camera and know one lens from the other.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, we are running out of time, unfortunately, but before I want to pass the ball to Florian one last time. You are a very good team player, and Florian, maybe you have one final thought on working together, working on community. How can you inspire us with one last thought?
Yeah, I think in a collective of photographers, it's always very hard because usually they're very, very different individuals coming together. So as Kathy said before, the overlying thing that you always should look at is, does the story that you're thinking about as a group really connects with you? Does it really motivate you, push you, and gives you something that you can sustain in for quite a while? Because teamwork is always something that will last for maybe not only a couple of months, but a couple of years, especially if you're looking at bigger projects. And then, of course, the sky is the limit. I mean, look beyond, look around you, and don't stop at what you're used to, but remain curious and don't think you are finished yet. It's there's always so much more to explore, and also your images will really benefit from each other's experience, and others, and listen to the other people's advice. I mean, if you're reaching out to a pro level, then listen to the pros, and this is really beneficial to your work, definitely so.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure working together as a group, as a team with you guys. It's
been very short.
Is it?
It's been very short. I mean,
it felt very short, but unfortunately we have to move on. Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure to have you here with us. I'm very happy that we managed, and yeah, hopefully we can see each other soon.
We want to see you here as soon as possible.
So we can have some nice jamón and beers and enjoy Costa Brava. So thanks again, good evening, and yeah.
Hasta aquí el día de hoy. Esperamos que realmente os haya gustado, que os lo hayáis pasado bien y que aún tengáis ganas de más, porque mañana aún habrá más. No olvidéis enviar vuestras fotos de hoy al email fest2021@monphoto.com y recordad que hay una cámara Olympus que os está esperando.